Thank you very much. This may sound like the most big-headed title for a talk you could ever have, but what I'd like to do today is argue that the messages relayed in song lyrics are the most important you've ever heard or will ever hear. The current generation have the internet now, I suppose, for their education, but song lyrics were our education, people of my generation. It pains me to say it here at this fine educational establishment, but I learnt more from song lyrics than I ever did in the classroom. Song lyrics were an education, documenting our growing up, our joys, our sorrows, our discoveries, our loves, and, oh yes, our lusts too. I can hear you saying, isn't it all about the music? By which I mean the sound of the song, rather than necessarily the words themselves. Well, I think yes and no. It's been said that lyrics take place in the context of a lot of musical information, and that these don't function as well without musical accompaniment. Dance music is a case in point here, I think. The power of the music and the word or phrase together being used to relay a sentiment or an emotion, like a kind of audio version of a meme, perhaps. Take, for example, Moby's rave classic, Go, which just has the lyrics, go, yeah, or yeah. Or Underworld's Born Slippy, made famous from the Trainspotting soundtrack with its cry of shouting, lager, lager, lager. If it was just about the music, though, would the most listened to song of the 20th century be, does anyone know? Good guess, but it was the Beatles' Yesterday. I wonder, though, if it had been so successful had it used Paul McCartney's original lyrics. Any guesses based on the pictures? Scrambled eggs. Oh, my baby, how I love your legs. Good, well completed, thank you. Thinking about the place of song lyrics in English literature, the question remains, can song lyricists be considered poets? Well, I think they can and they should be, but few are. So obviously people like Dylan, Lennon and McCartney, Morrissey, Ray Davies, Jim Morrison, etc. But I believe many more should be. Maybe not all, though. Tony Wilson of Factory Records said about Shaun Ryder, the lead singer of the Happy Mondays, that he was on a par with W.B. Yeats. So let's have a look at Mr. Ryder's lyrics. Son, I'm 30, I only went with your mother because she's dirty. And it carries on. And I don't have a decent bone in me. What you get is just what you see, yeah. But as Yeats himself said, think like a wise man, but communicate in the language of the people. So perhaps that's what Mr. Ryder was doing. We can give him the benefit of the doubt, perhaps. The history of song lyrics is another talk all in itself. But let's start in the interwar years with two British comedic singer-songwriters from opposite sides of the class spectrum. So here we have Noel Coward, who in Mad Dogs and Englishmen comes out with this line. The natives grieve when the white men leave their huts because they're obviously absolutely nuts. And it carries on. It seems such a shame that when the English claim the earth, it gives rise to such hilarity and mirth. Whilst in The Window Cleaner, Wigan-born George Formby ruminates on life as a peeping Tom. I go window cleaning to earn an honest bob. For a nosy Parker, it's an interesting job. Before ending, if you could see what I could see when I'm cleaning windows. Clearly the English are commentating on their behaviour, both public and private. During the years of the Second World War, hardly surprisingly, the imagery is optimistic. Ones of clouds gathering, but the possibility of silver linings, blue skies, a hope for a better tomorrow, an optimistic post-war world. Bing Crosby in Accentuate the Positive tells us, you've got to spread joy to the maximum, bring gloom to the minimum, have faith or pandemonium is liable to walk upon the scene. A musical genre, though, that did not intend to bring gloom to the minimum was blues. Sorrow, despair, and desperation of the human soul were its in-stock phrases. If it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have no luck at all, said Lightning Slim in Bad Luck Blues. And this spirit led to Elvis Presley exclaiming in Heartbreak Hotel, since my baby left me, I found a new place to dwell, before ending, I get so lonely, I could die. Like poetry, song lyrics are about all sorts of things, and I've loosely divided these up into the personal and the political. starting with the most basic type of human right, I guess, the right to freedom. In This Land Is Our Land, Woody Guthrie says, "As I went walking, I saw a sign there, and on the sign it said no trespassing. And on the other side, it didn't say nothing. That side was made for you and me." So this song from 1940 is a class statement. The working class should have the same rights as the rich. It has since become a kind of hymn for civil rights. The rebel Guthrie, whose guitar you can see here is inscribed with the motto, "This machine kills fascists," was before his time. Other topics of his included vegetarianism, women's rights, and ecological concerns. Ecological concerns began to be highlighted in songs from probably the late 60s on. And in the early 1970s, there was artists like Marvin Gaye on his What's Going On LP, particularly the track Mercy, Mercy Me, and the Beach Boys as well, with tracks such as Don't Go Near the Water from the surely ironically titled Surf's Up. And then we had Joni Mitchell with Big Yellow Taxi. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They've paved paradise and put up a parking lot. Good alliteration there from Joni. And the Eagles, a track title, Last Resort, surely which has multiple meanings. Some rich men came and raped the land, nobody caught them. Put up a bunch of ugly boxes and people bought them. And I think, given all the development nowadays, it's a sentiment that we can still relate to. Song lyrics have long been used as vehicles to educate the wider masses to the words of famous activists. Take, for example, Public Enemy in Harder Than You Think, which was the aptly titled soundtrack for the 2012 Paralympic Games, reminding us of the wisdom of Malcolm X. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Or War by Bob Marley, which echoes the famous speech made a few years earlier by Dr. Martin Luther King. Until there's no longer first-class and second-class citizens of any nation, until the color of a man's skin is no more significant than the color of his eyes, me say war. An anti-war sentiment has been there in lots of songs. We can think of, for example, Pete Seeger in Where Have All the Flowers Gone? You might know this song from a long time back now, 60 years ago. The flowers are picked by young ladies or given to them by men. They marry these men. They become their husbands. They go off to war. They become soldiers, go off to war. They get shot. They get killed. They're put into graves, and the women get the flowers and put them onto the graves. And then when will we ever learn? Is the big question asked there. And Jimmy Webb penned Galveston, which is probably more famously sung by Glenn Campbell, the tale of a 21-year-old missing his Texas hometown and his dark-eyed girlfriend. I clean my gun and dream of Galveston, and I am so afraid of dying are two of the lines from this song. Surely all the more haunting, written as they were in 1969 at the height of the Vietnam War. The Doors' Unknown Soldier sums up the fragility of war and the suddenness of death in just a few lines. Unborn living, living dead, bullet strikes the helmet's head, and it's all over for the unknown soldier. Or as simply and rhetorically phrased by Edwin Starr, war, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Song lyrics have long been perhaps the sole voice of youth rebellion. In the 1950s, we had Bill Haley willing teenagers to stay up all night long and party, or as he put it, rock, rock, rock till broad daylight in Rock Around the Clock. And the rise of youth culture in the 60s was documented perhaps best by The Who, whose assertion, "Why don't you all fade away?" We all knew what they meant. In the 1970s, punk had a lot to say, none more so than the Sex Pistols. Their oppositional stance being made clear in their anti-Silver Jubilee song, God Save the Queen, in which they rhymed God Save the Queen with fascist regime, and pointing out, lest we forget, that there's no future in England's dreaming. The Pistols also came out with a rather perhaps antagonistically titled Anarchy in the UK, which ended with a very famous three-word sentiment. Okay, so get a load of this punchline from this cartoon in which a bunch of old punks reminisce about the past. Sometimes lyrics can take on a significance different to that of which they were originally written. Take, for example, Dylan's Maggie's Farm. This meant a lot to me on different levels, being part of Maggie's army of 3 million plus for much of the 1980s. I became politically aware, more politically aware through songs, I think, than I ever did for anything else. Growing up in the 1980s, I understood why the said that the UK was the 51st state of the USA. And against the background of the 1981 riots, I understood the sentiment in the Specials Ghost Town. Sometimes the political also becomes party political. Pop act D-Ream were approached by New Labour about using their feel-good track, Things Can Only Get Better, to soundtrack the 97 conference. The title becomes horribly ironic later, given developments, particularly the Iraq War. Song lyrics highlight the personal too, the constant struggle to work out what life's about, sometimes simply and wisely pointed out. Baby, life's what you make it, said Talk Talk. In Lola by the Kinks, this warned me to be wary of things that they're not always what they seem in this mixed up, muddled up, shook up world. And Prefab Sprout's Paddy McAloon gave me a perspective on life. Some things hurt more, much more, than cars and girls. Song lyrics document our lives and our lusts, the flush of youthful passion, perhaps best summed up by John Peel's favourite, The Undertones' Teenage Kicks, proclaiming, I wanna hold her tight and get teenage kicks all through the night. Sylvia Plath famously commented, if they substituted the word lust for love in popular songs, it would come nearer the truth. Songs have often included literary references, or in some cases have been used as vehicles to critique the state of literature itself. In 1934, Cole Porter wrote, good authors who once knew better words now only use 4-letter words. Writing prose, anything goes. There is no doubt that songs can be very mysterious. Don McLean's American Pie, the original hand lyrics to which recently sold for over £1 million, being a case in point, as well as Ode to Billy Joe by Bobby Gentry, and kind of whodunit, what did they do, kind of song. Some people even go so far to suggest that certain lyricists are imbued with the ability to predict future events. And one such person is perhaps the Smiths' Morrissey. In Panic, he talks of the provincial towns that you jog round, the lead side streets that you slip down, with the chorus, hang the DJ, bringing to mind, to some at least, references to Jimmy Savile. Some say Morrissey suspected the Leeds-born DJ and celebrity jogger years before anybody else knew anything. And also, in There Is a Light That Never Goes Out, this has the conspiracy theorists looking at the similarities between this and Lady Diana's death, which occurred 11 years later. In the lines, driving in your car, please don't drop me home, because it's not my home, it's their home, and I'm welcome no more, for some sealing the connection. The darkened underpass in the song is mirrored where the actual crash happened, just below the eternal flame. A light that never goes out. Mystery or no mystery, there can be no doubt the power that not just music, but the lyrics within music hold over us. Earworms, for example, I don't know if you know what these are, but they're when you can't get a song out of your head. Yeah? So if I mention the title Agadoo, push pineapple, shake the tree, it will be there for days, believe you me. So I won't. Oops. Memory recall. I have no idea why I can remember swathes of pop lyrics, but barely piece together a well-known quote or a poem or something like this. And there's also mondegreens. I don't know if you know what these are, but this is when, interesting phenomenon, when people mishear a lyric. So the most famous example is Jimi Hendrix's Purple Haze, which is Excuse Me While I Kiss the Sky, which because of assimilation, liaison, elision, and other things like this, is misheard as, excuse me while I kiss this guy. There is no doubt that the lyrics in songs and their mood can relay emotions that we cannot otherwise express. I don't think I'll ever forget the potency of emotion when radio DJs Mark and Lard chose Jeff Buckley's version of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah for the first anniversary of 9/11. And also they're misinterpreted. R.E.M's The One I Love is often used at weddings. But it's not a love song at all. If you look at the second and third lines, this one goes out to the one I love, yeah, but this one goes out to the one I've left behind. a simple prop to occupy my time. Can we say perhaps that any particular genre is richest in lyrics? Pop, soul, rock, folk, country, even punk perhaps? Will all figure strongly, but I think that perhaps the strongest lyrically is rap or hip-hop. From the 1970s, rap has been reinventing the wheel with Chrome and an upgrade. In Grandmaster Flash, in The Message, telling it like it is, it's like a jungle sometimes and makes me wonder how I keep them going under. And in cocaine-filled times, issuing a warning about the temporal nature of that drug and success generally, white lines blow away. Prince, in his hard-hitting Sign of the Times, tells the story of a man dying of a big disease with a little name. Sure, it's about the delivery, but at the best of times, rap lyrics are pure poetry. Check Osmosis's version of John Lennon's Imagine. Or fellow British rapper Scroobius Pip's output, particularly the intriguing God's Letter to Man. Rap is often word-heavy. Eminem's Rap God clocks in at 1,560 words. At its speediest delivery, 97 words are delivered in 15 seconds. Or the superb Rapper's Delight by Sugar Hill Gang, which weighs in just short of 2,900 words. That's longer than most student essays. Given all this, perhaps we can understand why Swansea white boy rappers Goldie Looking Chain put forward the proposition that guns don't kill people, rappers do. Clearly, I've just skimmed the surface of the subject of song lyrics today. Over the course of looking into this, it's become clear to me that next to nothing is known about the effect that song lyrics have on us and the power they have over us. Thus far, they've not been considered highbrow enough for academic consideration, but I believe they should be. I believe they are underrated in many ways, not least linguistically. I believe that we should elevate song lyrics to the place they rightfully belong in the canon of English literature. And as it's really all about the lyrics today, I've got a next slide here in which all the lyrics that I've quoted or mentioned are on. Feel free to take a photo of these and to check them in your own good time. Thank you for listening, and have a good TEDx day.